I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature.
Hello and a warm welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. The case against McDougal is pretty open and shut, isn't it? Poor Audrey was found in the Trinity River tied to a rock. The rope is similar to a rope seen in McDougal's truck. I don't think this case is going to be very hard to prove or to prosecute. We've also learned that on the afternoon of the incident, McDougal was seen at a mechanic covered in dirt. Workers at a mechanic shop near Highway 59 in Livingston on the day that Audrey went missing told Eyewitness News off camera that McDougal was there trying to get a part for his blue Chevy Suburban, adding that he was filthy, covered in dirt and acting suspicious. When Audrey was still missing, it was natural to assume, since her mother was making emotional appeals to the public, that Audrey went missing from her mother's custody. But Audrey was actually staying with her father Joshua at the time. Joshua has been silent throughout all this, and more, it was Joshua's pal who ostensibly drove Audrey to the bus stop. Well, that is what he was supposed to do, and has now been charged with capital murder. This begs the question, where was Joshua? What was he doing that he couldn't take his own daughter to the bus stop? And when Audrey disappeared, why didn't he make an effort to appeal for help? But the rabbit hole, I think, goes even deeper, and this takes us to 3 key questions. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. Number 1, why did dodgy McDougal think he could just take this child and get away with it? Because obviously that's exactly what he thought. I can just take this child and there won't be any consequences. From an outsider's perspective, we can see how Audrey's situation made her quite vulnerable. She's not with her mother, and mothers are typically primary caregivers. They tend to be present, conscientious, and sensitive to the needs of young children in general than fathers. I'm speculating, of course, but if Joshua was already handing over his daughter to be babysat by McDougal, well, now Audrey is effectively in a third person's custody. Not her mother's, not her father's, but a third person who's not even a family member. Someone who most people could see from a mile away, this isn't babysitter material. Now, although McDougal's guilt is hardly a matter of debate here, and I don't think that's the mystery of the ages, I'm sure you'll agree with me, but I do think there needs to be important questions raised about both parents here, but more specifically Joshua, because Audrey was with Joshua when she was taken, in his custody, in his home. Also, if McDougal and Joshua were friends, such good buddies that Joshua allowed McDougal to stay on the property, what does that say about Audrey's father? So I think he does have some explaining to do. Number 2, did Cassie have custody of Audrey? Cassie's Facebook status suggests she is currently in a relationship with a guy called Justin. Justin's Facebook page is full of casino and gambling apps or activity. But one can see how a mother might be distracted by being in a relationship with someone else, just as Casey Anthony was. In a situation like that, a child can fall through the cracks. Is that what happened here? Cassie has accused her ex-husband of falsely blaming her for losing custody because of drugs. In fact, Cassie was actively defending herself against these slurs, against these accusations on Facebook while the search for Audrey was still taking place. And the New York Post recorded her saying, apparently, if you can provide me a record that states I failed a drug test, then and only then can you accurately state I was on drugs or chose drugs over my child, did drugs around my child. That's what she wrote on February 19. As much as we sympathize with the little girl's mother, one does have to ask why Audrey wasn't living with her and when last she'd seen her daughter. Number 3, How much of a factor are drugs? To return to the original question, what made someone think Audrii might disappear and no one would really care? Isn't it because she was already a few rungs down on the ladder of neglect? Isn't it because one or both of her parents were absentee parents? Well, what more than that? I don't know if drugs are a factor here, but it would make sense if one or both parents were preoccupied. Often, perhaps in a certain sense, well, then the girl would need babysitting. Also, the fact that she was allowed to walk to the school bus stop, and, on the day of her death, neither parent actually took her there. Doesn't that suggest something beyond benign neglect? Right now, 2 high-profile criminal trials are playing out, one to do with a child dying in the middle of a drug-fueled frenzy, Harmony Montgomery, and then in another case, a mother murdered in the middle of a World War III scale custody battle. And so what happens when you mix the two together? Custody issues, divorce, meeting someone new, and drugs. What happens then? Well, the bottom line is neglect are features of both the cases I've mentioned. In the one, it's a husband neglecting his wife because of a mistress. In another one, it's drug addiction. And so you combine those, and isn't that going to exacerbate issues of neglect? Do you agree? What do you think? Murders and deaths don't just happen in a vacuum. In the case of a murder, someone, somewhere along the lines, makes a calculation, and a big part of the calculation is their chances of getting away with murder. Yeah, you have something very brazen. Someone who actually lives on the property who thinks, wow, I can seize my chance here, and then I'll go back living there, and no one will ever guess it's me. And so if there is a lot of neglect, don't they rate their chances a lot better? What do you think? I guess more information is going to be coming out in this case. I do think there is a reason, this is just my opinion, that McDougall thought Audrei's parents wouldn't notice or care if she was missing. It's possibly because of occasions when they didn't notice when she was there to begin with that she was actually taken. I must also say that this case, the fabric of this case, reminds me to some extent of aspects of the Summer Wells case. There's also a river. There's also strange characters. There's also the spectre of substance abuse. Anyway, I'm not going to take it further than that. Look out for my next live stream later today on the Jennifer Doulos case. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.